Really being into a game is not such a bad thing, unless it causes you to be so distracted that you fall down a manhole to your death. At that point, maybe you should start reevaluating your choices in life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my review of volume number 1 of Natsu's light novel series, Obsessions of an Otome Gamer. This one released in English by Cross Infinite Worlds. It's actually my first Cross Infinite Worlds title, so we'll talk a little bit about that later. If you'd like to get yourself a copy of this, I do have a link to Amazon in the description down below. Now, this one is ultimately going to be 5 volumes long. Volumes 1 to 3 are sort of the main core story. And then, interestingly enough, volumes 4 and 5 are branching away and will sort of follow their own kind of story. And, well, I mean, Otome Gamer, it's sort of the whole Otome kind of thing that plays into this very heavily, which I will talk about going forward. Obsessions of an Otome Gamer features our main character, Mashiro. And Mashiro has had heartache. She's had her heart broken truly for the first time. And to basically run away from that, she becomes obsessed with a male character in a 2D Otome game. And if you're not familiar, Otome games are basically dating type simulators. We see them mostly in North America, released aimed at men, so, you're trying to woo multiple women. It's sort of the same idea, only, of course, it's a female protagonist trying to become romantically involved with a myriad of male protagonists. However, in this particular scenario, this particular game, there were only 2 males that you could pursue. And Mashiro had her eye set on one. The game, Hear My Heart, was absolutely broken in terms of its mechanics. It was so difficult. In fact, it was a music-based Otome game, and it was so hard. Not only did you have to do the usual game mechanics of answering questions during scenarios and stuff to try and boost their affection for you, but you also had to compose music from given sets of notes, and if your music wasn't good enough, you failed, and that was it. You could lose the game. Anyway, Mashiro becomes very into this game. She even starts trying to teach herself music composition just to try and beat it. One day, she is coming home from her university entrance exams, and she looks across the street, and she sees a poster featuring her beloved Ko, and an advertisement. It's a remake of the game. She stares so intently upon the poster that she walks across the road in an entranced state and doesn't notice the open manhole right in front of her. Yeah, that she tumbles down to her death. End of story, right? Well, come on, it's a light novel. We all know that's not the case. Instead, what ends up happening is that at 7 years old, Mashiro regains her memories of her previous life and comes to realize that she is now living in a world that is similar to Hear My Heart. And the rest of the novel, basically, of course, has her encountering Ko, the boy that she had initially fallen for in the game, So, the other boy, and a myriad of other characters as well, most notably a girl who becomes one of her very closest friends and dearest friends, Kon. And she also becomes absolutely obsessed with playing the piano. Obsessed is probably not the right word. She becomes very passionate about playing the piano. And the majority of this book is about the development of the relationships between these characters. Now, we probably need to get a few things out of the way right now. This is Otome gaming. The name is like the whole genre is not mentioned in the title just for giggles. The structure of the book is based on the idea of Otome gaming. This particular book covers 4 years of Mashiro's life. It covers the remainder of her elementary school years. And because it's covering this big span of space, each chapter is basically like a major event, sequentially, that happens in her life that not only is important to her, but also has the potential for being important for the development of her relationship with either one or both of the two main male characters, or even with other characters as well. So structurally, this is set up very similar to, say, an Otome game. Also, you have to understand is that with an Otome game being at the center of this thing, there are pretty much age-inappropriate emotions. There's nothing you need to worry about. It doesn't do anything sketchy, but I just mean that particularly Ko and So act and speak in ways that seem far beyond their years. And they both, of course, have to have some kind of emotional scarring that happened to them before that's turned them into certain individuals. And it's their characters are a little bit overly melodramatic, to the point where even Mashiro herself at a couple of times is like, really? You know, an 8-year-old should not talk that way. There's no way an 8-year-old should turn their eyes on me like that. So it's a little overdone, but that's on purpose. And again, you know, it's staying in line with the genre. And a good example of how you know it's on purpose is because all of the sort of side inconsequential characters, like Mashiro's friends at her school, they're all like age appropriate. Even as the years progress, their behavior becomes a little bit more age appropriate and, you know, continues, right? So it really is just the two main male characters that have a lot of this, you know, acting way beyond their years and have stuff that has happened to them that seems a little, well, So's is somewhat believable. Ko's, you know what, I thought Ko's was a little bit, I was like, well, if he was 15 and you told me that had happened to me, I'd buy it, but it seems kind of weird that he's 7 and something like that happened. But, you know, I leave that up to you. So you have to understand right away that that's what you're walking into. And also, of course, because it is an Otome-focused book, and because it is more of a shoujo-type title, emotions and relationships play a massive part in the story's goals and in the plot points of the book. Now, all of this might make this sound like this is just some kind of really sappy, fluffy type of book. And I have to be really honest, part of me kind of thought that was what I was getting into. But I was really wrong. There were 2 things that really sold me on this book. And I have to say they were the 2 things that really kept me very engaged with it, very interested in it. And you have to understand, this book is over 118,000 words long. Like, this is more than double the size of your average light novel. It's probably closer to 2 1/3 times the size of the average light novel. So, yeah, it's a big book, man. And it kept me pretty hooked for the whole thing. So that I give it props for that. So anyway, let's get to it. So number 1, what sells this book? Mashiro, the main character. She is the thing that makes this book work. And it's because of a number of factors. First off, she is just an enjoyable character. She's a relatable character. She is not one of these characters that she is self-aware enough that she never does anything that seems truly stupid or airheaded or, you know, acts in a way that seems frustrating to you because you're like, oh, you're just acting like a dumb girl in love. No, she's not like that. She's actually very aware of what's happening. She has enough self-awareness to try and control what's going on around her. She has enough awareness to often ask herself, whether it be her ability on the piano, whether it be her relationships with Ko and So. She asks herself, is this really me? Or is this the game? Is this the structure, the world of Hear My Heart forcing these things on me? And as I said, part of that self-awareness is also her commenting about how Ko and So's behaviors, words, gestures, and stuff like that seem ridiculously beyond their years, which, you know, kind of makes you as a reader go, okay, it's not just me. All right, cool. And like I said, once you realize, okay, it's Otome, it makes sense why things are like that, and nobody else is really like that. So yeah, it's the mechanic, right? Also with her, one of the things that I really liked, and it's something that you don't often see in sort of reincarnation type isekais. She is probably one of the few characters I've seen that truly dwells on the fact that she had a family that loved her before she ended up in this world. I'm not saying that nobody ever acknowledges it. Yeah, they do, but she grieves. She mourns for the loss of her family. She feels guilt because her family got along so well. She knows that it probably destroyed them that she died so young, and especially in such a ridiculous way. It continues through the book. Now, through the book, her memories start to fade, and there is a reason for that. I won't tell you because I don't want to spoil it. But even as her memories fade, there is constantly that sense that she has that, you know, someone will say something to her and she'll be like, you know, I can't escape the feeling that someone I loved a great deal once said something like that to me. Or, you know, she will idly wonder, like, her mom will do something very nice for her and she'll be like, once even she can't remember exactly, she'll be like, she'll still ask herself, I wonder what my mom in the other world would have done, like in my first life would have done. And it's this callback to her previous life as well that I think provides a bit of emotional resonance to the character and makes the character more interesting. Because it isn't like she just comes into this world and abandons everything and is like, yay, I get to hang out with the hot guy I was obsessed with. Even then, she's like, aware enough to say to herself, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should keep distance between myself and them. And if I have no choice but keep running into them because of the way this world is forcing me to, I can still choose to only be friends with them. You know, and because she realizes that part of Otome games are bad endings. Like I said, self-awareness. She's like, I might actually be better if this is truly my life. I might be better off just staying away from them and making my way in this world and seeing what life brings me away from the Hear My Heart component of this world. I also love the fact that, and it's a little bit beyond just the character, but her passion for the piano. Now, Natsu is apparently herself a pianist and a big fan of classical music, and it absolutely shows. Music is such a huge integral part of this story, obviously, and having the fact that A, they always list the pieces that she's playing, B, I found that in discussing the performance of the pieces, it is accessible enough that if you're not a big musical nerd, then you, and I say musical nerd because I was one, you know, if you're not that big into music, it is still very accessible. You can still understand the passion as well as the hard work that is going into creating that piece. And at the same time, though, even as a person who knows music, or, well, okay, I'm no expert anymore, it's been many years, but even for someone who's had music as a big part of their life, there's enough there for me that when I was reading it, I was like, now this person knows what they're talking about. Like, this is not just some author who's like, oh, piano is flowery there. Flowery. No, like, I mean, even going to some parts where she discusses the differing tempos and how the different key changes emote in a different way. As I said, it demonstrates a sense of realism to it that made me even a little bit more engaged with the character, and even just not even her journey with just the other characters and her relationships with them, but her journey too, like seeing her love for the piano, her passion for the piano, and feeling like it's a real thing because of the detail that the author has put into it. I was even invested in just her journey as a pianist, you know? So Mashiro's character in general really made me invested in this book because I cared about her. I liked her as a character. And because she was aware enough to question, is the game manipulating me? I wanted to know too, how much of this is her and how much of this is the game? How much are the actions of Ko and So based on a programming, or are they actually human beings and these are their actions, you know, their own free will? How much free will exists in this world? And it's this kind of questioning that leads me to the second part of why I love this book, and that's the underpinning mystery. About 35% of the way into the book, and I know it's that because I tweeted it out because I was like, whoa, this book just, what? What? It just all of a sudden took this turn, and it didn't change the trajectory of the story so much, but it added this whole new layer underneath the story. And suddenly you started questioning things a lot more about just what the heck is going on. And there are enough reveals about these mysteries that it certainly keeps you going and enticed and interested. But man, it leaves enough of them open that I absolutely want to read book 2, 3, and 4 and 5 to see what happens. Because the whole, you know, you start questioning, like I said, it's building more on that idea of just what is this world? And what function does Mashiro play in this world? And is she playing a role? Or does she truly have free choice? Is the world itself manipulating things against her? Or is it for her? Is it manipulating it against someone else? It just suddenly changed the whole thing for me. I mean, up until that point, like I said, I still enjoyed the book. Absolutely. But man, like at that point, all of a sudden I was just, whoa, okay, the rules seem to be a little bit different now. And it just added a whole new depth and layer to this book. So overall, Obsessions of an Otome Gamer. It contains a lot of really nice slice of life stuff. I mean, the individual moments really are about the relationships of the characters. And because you're invested in the character of Mashiro, that's important. And even Ko and So, even though, like I said, they're a little melodramatic, their behavior's a little over the top given their age, they are still complex characters. And then there's the character of Kon, who is multi-dimensional and has all sorts of reasons to be interested in who she is and what role she plays in the world. And like I said, there's so many characters in here that I really liked and I was interested in. And because the main character really made me buy it and made me really invested in her journey, and then there was all these cool kind of things underneath, these darker sort of questions and everything else, I just was like, wow, this is a great book. So if you're looking for something that's a bit different, obviously, and again, you have to be one of those people who likes slice of life and is certainly open to romance ideas and stuff like that, and you know, and is very much into a character-driven book. And I mean, there's really no action, right? Like if you're looking for fights and all of a sudden somebody's going to start flying in the air, kicking their feet and stuff, it's not happening. You know, if you love music, if you want something that's more of like a slice of life, but also has kind of some cool mystery to it and leaves you kind of questioning things, I think this is a really great title for that. I was very surprised. It was not what I expected, and in a good way, absolutely in a good way. I just want to wrap up a little bit, just because this is the first time I'm reading a book by Cross Infinite Worlds. I always do this when I read a book for the first time from a publisher. I just want to comment. I can't comment on the translation per se, but I just want to say, so in terms of the readability, the experience as a reader, this book was really well done. I mean, I'm not going to say that it had 100% no little blips and bleeps in terms of, small connecting words maybe missing or duplicated by accident. But the number of occurrences, especially given that this book is over 118,000 words long, there were no more in this than in any other light novel that's only 120, 150, 200 pages long. I was actually really impressed that the book could be so long and yet be so relatively error-free. And it reads very smoothly, very well. It really boosted my confidence in being able to say, hey, if there's a title that sounds interesting from Cross Infinite Worlds to you, absolutely pick it up, because they do a quality product. If they can put out something this big and make it work this well, I have absolute confidence that their titles are well done and that there's a great deal of care going into their development. Especially when it's kind of an interesting thing to consider that this is a license that's been done directly with the author. This isn't that Cross Infinite Worlds has licensed this from a Japanese publisher who has already done editing and everything else with the author. They're doing basically all of that themselves, plus translating it and then editing the translation. So when you consider it that way too, it's even more impressive, to be really honest. So all in all, Obsessions of an Otome Gamer kept me really hooked, really enjoyed it, and was very impressed with the readability and the care taken in its editing and everything else by Cross Infinite Worlds. Like I said, if you can get past my little warnings on what the content is like, if it sounds like it might be up your alley, I'd absolutely recommend it. So for my next review, because, reincarnation isekais are not enough nowadays, but let's go for something different. How about being reborn as a vending machine? Every time I mention this title, my wife saw this book laying on my desk, and she looked at it. She's like, "Really now?" Yes, dear. Really. That's right. Reborn as a vending machine. I now wander the dungeon. That'll be my next review. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, as well as a countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.